So arbitration costs is about providing scientific data on the costs of investment arbitration in a way that enables stakeholders to make better decisions about the future of international economic law and treaties. Part of the reason that I felt the need to write this book was to reality check my own assumptions. When I had started as a junior legal scholar, in one of my very first articles, it was called The Legitimacy Crisis in Investment Arbitration, I made an assumption and that I put in print. And the assumption was that unmeritorious claims would have costs shifted against them. After I saw that in print, I thought, am I empirically right about that? And so in 2006, when I was checking my own initial assumption, I required myself to engage in the precision I wished to see in others. Namely, I began empirical research to test whether or not I was correct or incorrect. And I have to say, I've found plenty of times that I was wrong. But that's the beauty of data, is it's not personal. It's about making good decisions and letting the data be your guide. The objective of the book is not just to provide that data, to flesh out empirical assumptions that we might have, but it's also to ask people to engage in a slightly different way of thinking about international law, namely with a psychological lens. Thinking about decisions as a human decision-making process, where we may have theories about the way we conduct ourselves, but actually we can become inadvertently tricked in terms of how information is framed, or what numbers are presented to us when, and what that means for our decisions, not just about treaty making, but dispute resolution, whether you're a party considering bringing a case or defending a case, whether you're counsel trying to provide advice, or an arbitrator trying to make basic decisions. Without data, it is impossible to fact-check your own assumptions, and you risk increasing error and undermining the legitimacy of international arbitration. So why not use a data-driven approach to thinking about international investment law and decreasing risk and increasing integrity? One of the unique elements of arbitration costs is its interdisciplinary focus, particularly drawing from the literature of cognitive psychology and behavioral economics. More often than not, international law in its past has focused on disciplinary excellence related to economics and political science, and psychology has been left to the wayside. But with critical innovations from cognitive psychology about motivations behind human behavior and how theory differs from the reality of conduct, cognitive psychology is ripe to aid insights in international law. At this particular moment in time, we just have to look around us to see that fact-checking is vitally important, and that in an era of fake news, it's quite important to make sure that there's veracity and reliable information behind the claims that we make, particularly when we're thinking about making major choices in international economic law and treaties. To the extent that this book focuses on using data to make sure our dispute resolution choices are informed by the best insights from both hard data and cognitive psychology, we have an opportunity to improve our decision making, or at least reduce risk of error from cognitive illusions. When I first started to practice law, I was in a very unusual position. You could literally count the number of investment treaty awards on two hands. And in a way, at that moment in time, that was around 2000, international investment arbitration was in its infancy, with far more awards, which are now reaching into the hundreds. We're at a very different process while we're watching the area evolve. And like with any area of evolution, whether it's a human being or an area of law or even the growth of a town, you will see changes. And the question is how to respond to changes in an effective, proactive, positive manner. The challenge that investment arbitration faces is a polarization that is essentially tribalism come to international investment law. So rather than focusing on data and long-term solutions, the focus on group psychology and identity politics may in fact be drawing us further away from solutions that are better for the international law system's health in the longer term. For me, one of the most interesting areas for change is the revision process currently undergoing at ICSID with the World Bank. And part of the reason that arbitration costs to me was such an important labor of love was I knew that this process was going to be at the forefront, and I wanted to be in a position to provide advice and thoughts for stakeholders, and that includes the council who are representing clients, but also states making choices and opining, voting on potential rule amendments, and also providing public commentary. And in fact, I also have learned a great deal from reading the commentary of states. And in fact, I had to change part of my book because there were several submissions that were made by countries like Spain in December. And so those got incorporated into the footnotes. Although my Spanish is a bit rusty, we did what we had to do because this was a didactic process of states and academics coming together to provide insights for real institutional reform. And for me, it's a very exciting opportunity to make a real difference by saying, here's the data, make choices in connection with the data. And I've already been delighted to see some shifts. For example, one of the recommendations that I made in arbitration costs was that ICSID should require at least one case management conference to see if there was an opportunity to streamline the proceedings and the costs of those proceedings. In its most recent rule iteration, ICSID has adopted my recommendation, and they are now no longer just permitting it, they are requiring it. So this is an opportunity for real input to have better choices on the basis of real data, not just one person's experience. That experience may be relevant and important, but it is one part of a larger whole. And for a holistic solution, we need holistic data to provide holistic solutions.